Welcome into Mock Trial Masterclass, your guide to controlling the courtroom. I'm Luke and I want you to be a mock trial master. Let's talk about how you can make that happen. I love talking about objections. It's one of my favorite parts of mock trial. By the time that I finished my mock trial career, I loved making objections. I loved getting objections and getting to argue them. I think they're so much fun once you get a handle on how to do them well. Sometimes one specific mistake slips in as people are arguing and making objections that derails the whole process. In fact, I have seen attorneys that knew the rules of evidence backwards and forwards, that knew every single other strategy I've taught on this channel and in my book about objections, and yet they let this one mistake slip in and it completely ruined everything for them. And in this video, we're going to talk about what that mistake is and how to avoid it. Before we hop in, I want to remind you that if there's any topic at all you want to see me cover on the channel, please leave a comment below. I love tackling the topics that you guys are interested in and that you all want to talk about. All right, let's hop in. All right, so what is this big mistake that I'm talking about? Well, simply put, it's when attorneys overcomplicate their objection arguments. Now, you know that I love going back to the rules of evidence. I preach return to the rule, connect the rule to what we're talking about. I'm not worried about rules here when I'm talking about overcomplicating things. Here's what I mean. Let's say that I'm asking a witness who is identifying the killer in a murder trial and who was the killer. And they say, it's that guy right there, the defendant. And the other side stands up and says, objection relevance. Right now, obviously, us looking at this example know that that's completely silly. Of course, identifying the murderer or the alleged murderer in a murder case is relevant every single time. And so a good response to that objection would be, well, Your Honor, under Rule 401, relevant evidence is evidence that has any tendency to make a fact of consequence more or less likely. And what could possibly make the fact of consequence more likely than this witness identifying the murderer? It's relevant, Your Honor. There's no doubt about it. Right, that would be a great response to that. But you know what I hear way too often is this sort of response. Well, Your Honor, under Rule 401, relevant evidence is evidence that has any tendency to make a fact of consequence more or less likely. Today we stand here in this court of law in a murder trial. We're trying to determine the person who committed the murder. And as we do see this witness's testimony here, there is definitely a chance, a great one perhaps, of being pointed in the correct direction as to who that killed. Why are we using so many words? Why are we using so many words? It's not necessary. I'm all for, again, citing the rule, returning to the rule. That's great. That's how I started my, quote unquote, good objection response that I gave you a second ago. But all these words, all we needed to say was, Judge, it's a murder trial and he's identifying the killer. She's identifying the killer. That's what makes it relevant. That's the point. What I just did is what I call going for the throat. Perhaps it's a bit of a violent way to term that strategy, but it's so important. When you're getting these objections, whether it's relevance or hearsay or anything else, you just got to tell the judge what's going on. You can't over-intellectualize, you can't over-complicate your objection responses. Going for the throat, going for the kill, is just looking at the judge and saying, Your Honor, this is a murder trial. Of course it's relevant that this guy is identifying the killer. Let me give you another example. We're going to stay with relevance, okay? I'm cross-examining a witness on their credibility, right? They're biased, they know the defendant, and they're testifying on the defendant's behalf today. So I'm grilling them on that. Now, you know the defendant. You're best friends with the defendant, right? And there's nothing you wouldn't do for the defendant. All right, I'm cross-examining them. Objection, relevance. Okay, well, Your Honor, under Rule 401, again, we're going to cite the rule, we're going to return to the rule. Under Rule 401, relevant evidence is evidence that has any tendency to make a fact of consequence more or less likely. And Your Honor, credibility of witnesses is always relevant, and that's what this line of questions goes towards. That's a good way to do it. That's going for the throat. Your Honor, this is credibility. We're making him seem biased. Don't even be afraid to say that. I might even say, Your Honor, this line of question is pointing out that the witness is biased and credibility is always relevant. But what if we instead get, Your Honor, through this line of questioning, I am examining the defendant's relationship to this witness. And as the jury considers this case, it's something that they deserve to be able to evaluate. Where are we going with this? Right? Why are we getting so in the weeds, so overcomplicated? Again, I love returning to the rules. I love applying the rules. It's key. It's crucial. It's how you win objections. What I'm not for is these roundabout explanations that don't actually tell the judge what is going on, right? Go for the throat. Your Honor, we're dealing with relevance. Rule 401, here's what Rule 401 says. And Your Honor, these questions are making it seem like this guy is biased, or proving this guy's biased, and credibility of witnesses is always relevant, as opposed to this weird loopy explanation that doesn't really go anywhere. That's not what we want. And it's a huge mistake. It's not even so much about costing people points. It's costing people the objection itself. Because if you can't go for the throat and just explain to the judge what's going on, they're going to get lost. And you know what I see happen plenty of times as well is we hear a first response, we hear, the argument, and then the judge will ask a question. They'll say, well, what exactly are you going for with this line of question? What are you hoping to show with this line of questions? What the judge is begging you for when they ask a question like that is tell them where you're going. Tell them the point of the questions. They're wanting you to say, Your Honor, these questions are designed to show that this guy's biased. I promise that is what they're wanting you to say. They're wanting you to make it simple for them so that they can understand what's going on and make a ruling. What they're not wanting is, yes, Your Honor, now let me take you back to case law, Sullivan v. Marks. If we look at, stop. Just go for the throat. Go for the kill shot with these objections. That's how you get the kill. That's how you win these objections. It's a huge mistake that you can't afford to make if you want to do this right. If you want some more help with objections, because I agree, they are complicated, they are difficult, I'd be happy to work with you. If you want to schedule some time with me to talk about objections, to work through what to do and what not to do, click the link in the description below to schedule some coaching time with me. I'd love to talk to you individually or your whole team about objections and really dig into this stuff too if you want, as to how to go for the throat better, how to get the kill shots better, because I'm telling you, it is so, so important, and it is a mistake you cannot afford to make if you want to succeed with objections. But because you guys are watching this channel, because you are so into this and so in tune with how to do this stuff well, I know that you are going to avoid that mistake, because mock trial masters go for the throat.